I remember us not being 100% sure if Insomniac would be at the big PlayStation show. Like, sure, I did make the prediction that we would see Spider-Man 2, but we got Ratchet & Clank and Miles very recently, so if Insomniac would skip this one, it would not have been surprising. But I guess we learned once again to never underestimate Insomniac. Both Spider-Man 2 and a new Wolverine game got announced. You likely saw the trailers already by now, and in this video I want to share some extra info we learned. I want to speculate about some things we saw in the trailer and link that to end credit scenes from the previous games. We even go and check the location from the trailer in the game right now. Is it there already? And I will talk a bit more about what the heck is going on at Insomniac. Is Wolverine a multiplayer game? I'm not sure. If you are of course excited for these games, then totally leave a like to show your support, and let's go. Let's start with the fact that both titles are PlayStation 5 exclusive, which I think is great. Horizon and God of War are of course still on PS4 and Miles before that, but now it's time for developers to make that big jump, and we already saw that a bit in the trailer. Everything was captured directly on PS5. Miles and Peter look incredibly sharp, and especially this earlier shot on the street hints at improved ray tracing and lighting. Now Insomniac can really go all out, and I'm sure that by the time the game comes out in 2023, the PS5 will be easier to find than it is right now. And maybe because of the duo takedown Miles and Peter did on the enemy, you would think that the game has co-op, but Insomniac confirmed on the PlayStation blog that they are so thrilled to continue the journey of both Peter Parker and Miles Morales in their most epic single-player adventure yet, coming exclusively to PlayStation 5 consoles in 2023. I think co-op would be awesome, I said it in my live reaction as well, but like, thinking more about it, I think it's smarter for them to focus on single player for these mainline games, and then maybe save multiplayer for like a spin-off title. And maybe they're already doing that, but again, more on that in a moment. Venom was of course the big reveal in the trailer. I think he looks really awesome, but who is it? Is it Harry, who we saw at the end of the first game with the symbiote from the looks of it? Norman mentions that he will find a cure, and at the end of Miles Morales, we see that Harry is awake and Norman orders Kurt to get him out, although Kurt warns him that it might be dangerous, but they get him out anyways. We also know that Eddie Brock is in the Insomniac Spider Man universe. We see his handwriting on a card for when Peter left the Daily Bugle. It's one of the collectibles in the first game. Maybe hard to read, but it says, "Great working with you." So they are on good terms. But yeah, we've seen that before. Anything can happen. So maybe Eddie plays a bigger role in the second game. Flash Thompson was also briefly mentioned in the original when walking around Feast and when looking at the message board. So anything is possible, although they will likely once again change things up, as we of course saw in the previous two games. Another villain we hear in the trailer seems to be Kraven the Hunter. He's looking for a worthy opponent. Makes sense that they are including him because he also is getting his own movie in the same year that the game is supposed to come out. So totally expect him to play a big role. I saw some people actually speculate that who is like attacking Miles here is Calypso, the partner of Kraven. I'm not sure about that, like how Miles takes her out. It seems more like a new enemy type with dual blades, but I still think that Calypso could be in the game, of course. Other potential villains are, of course, Yuri, maybe becoming the Wraith, as teased in the second episode of the City That Never Sleeps DLC. Seems like the game doesn't take place too far after Miles. We might see Lizard in this game. Kurt Connors, again, was in that end credit scene of Miles Morales with a missing arm, and he would, of course, experiment on himself to try and get the arm back, which led him to become the Lizard. Sure, it might be different here, but putting him in that scene while we haven't seen him before with Norman might be a subtle tease. And yeah, Green Goblin is of course also a safe bet. Maybe Norman goes crazy when Harry doesn't make it or when Harry becomes Venom. Venom is, by the way, played by Tony Todd, who you are likely familiar with, right? And on Twitter, he notes that he only found out about this role 2 months ago or so, and that the game is massive, and that's why it won't come out till 2023. And also, with Horizon and God of War likely in 2022, God of War could still slip, but I think they're aiming for 2022, like, let Insomniac take their time. I totally enjoyed Miles, but some big reveals and relationships could have used a little more screen time, and I really hope that we see that in this game. Just as in our previous Spider-Man games, we not only want to tell a great superhero story, but also deliver a compelling human story, one full of heart and humor that dives deep into the people behind the mask. So totally expect a lot of Miles and Peter scenes without the mask again, which I always quite liked in the previous games. In terms of powers, I think we see Miles do maybe a new counter attack and launch both enemies into each other. Peter has a new set of arms that also seem to include some shock effects. In the first game we of course had the iron arms, which we could also use on other suits, including the Iron Spider armor suit. First they looked similar, but then Insomniac changed them to be purely gold, exclusive for when you would use the suit power with this outfit. But if you compare these arms to what Peter has in Spider-Man 2, we totally see a lot of enhancements. They are a bit bigger, have these spikes, and they really seem like a good improvement. And Evan on Twitter pointed out that they actually changed the advanced suit from the original game by removing a lot of the red touches on the waist and the legs. I do like the changes on the arms and body though, which we see very clearly when both Peter and Miles are looking at Venom. I really can't wait, and I'm also curious about the map. Like, I hope it's significantly bigger, or that we at least have some new spaces to explore. In the trailer we see, I think, a new place called Michael's Diner. Goodman Street, which likely a hint to Martin Goodman, who of course founded the company that would become Marvel Comics. But Greenwich Street is already in the game right now. It's over here on the map in the original. I've never been to New York, like your theories are more than welcome in the comments down below. But I totally think these signs hint at something new that we can explore, and especially after Miles being in the same city, I hope that we get a substantial new area to explore in Marvel Spider-Man 2. Much of the development team of the first game is also back in the sequel, with Brian Intihar again the creative director and Ryan Smith as the game director. And this is interesting. Marvel's Wolverine is a standalone game being directed by Brian Horton and Cameron Christian, and they recently did Miles Morales. So it seems that a lot of people who worked on Miles are now focused on Wolverine, and the Spidey 2018 team is mostly on Spider-Man 2. But yeah, with Miles having released not even a year ago, it makes sense that Wolverine is still very early in development. From what I've seen of its emotional narrative and cutting-edge gameplay, the team is already creating something truly special. And it's according to Ryan Snyder from Insomniac, and yeah, they also have the team that just made Ratchet & Clank in Durham, North Carolina, so we will likely see something from them in the coming years too. And maybe you remember this, I touched on it in a previous Sunday video. Not too long ago, Insomniac was looking for a systems designer for a multiplayer project. I would be shocked if Wolverine is a multiplayer game, but does the job listing then mean that they're doing 3 games at the, let's call it, superhero studio in Burbank, California? Or this job listing was indeed for Wolverine, or maybe they're doing a Ghost of Tsushima Legends thing for Marvel Spider-Man 2. There are many options. Your thoughts are of course more than welcome in the comments down below. I think it will be a while before we see the 2 games again. Spider-Man 2 may be in a similar show next year, but I think Wolverine will likely skip that. When we know more about these games though, I will totally let you know here. So subscribe for way more Spider-Man content and Wolverine videos. A like would of course really help me out, and goodbye.